There is a quiet story that nobody tells, a story that hides behind polite smiles, behind family gatherings, behind the respectful silence we offer to people with silver hair and gentle hands. It is the story of what happens when the heart, after surviving decades of storms, dares to beat wildly again. We celebrate young love. We tolerate midlife love. But love after 60, that we treat like a harmless hobby, a cute distraction, a soft sunset romance. And that is the first lie. Because falling in love after 60 is not soft. It is not simple. It is not safe. It is powerful, disruptive, and dangerously transformative in ways that few are prepared to understand. By the time someone reaches 60, they have built a world. They have accumulated memories that stretch across generations. They have experienced loyalty, betrayal, compromise, sacrifice, grief, responsibility, and sometimes loneliness so deep it became familiar. Their identity is not fragile anymore. It is layered. It is structured. It is defended by experience. And then love appears, not the innocent, reckless kind of youth, but a profound emotional awakening that shakes foundations that were thought to be unmovable. This is not about butterflies. This is about earthquakes beneath carefully constructed emotional architecture. At 60, love does not arrive in an empty house. It arrives in a house filled with history. There are photographs on the walls, stories in the drawers, invisible ghosts of past attachments sitting quietly in every room. There may be children who feel protective, grandchildren who feel confused, friends who feel judgmental, and a society that subtly whispers, "At this age, you should know better." But the heart does not retire. The nervous system does not suddenly lose its capacity for attachment. The human brain continues to release dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. Emotional bonding does not come with an expiration date. What changes is the cost. The first danger no one speaks about is emotional vulnerability at a stage where defenses have become part of survival. After 60, many people have already experienced significant loss. Some have lost partners to death. Some have endured divorce. Some have lived alone for years, slowly building a rhythm of independence that feels safe. When love enters at this stage, it asks for something terrifying. It asks for surrender again. It asks a person who has learned to cope alone to open their emotional gates once more. And opening at 60 is not like opening at 20. At 20, heartbreak feels like the end of the world, but the world is still wide and full of possibility. At 60, heartbreak feels like it could be the last deep wound of a lifetime. Another danger is the illusion of urgency. Time feels different after 60. There is an acute awareness that the future is not infinite. This awareness can intensify attachment. Feelings move quickly, decisions accelerate, boundaries soften. There is a silent pressure that says there may not be many chances left. And this pressure can cloud judgment. People may ignore red flags they would have recognized easily in their 40s. They may overlook incompatibilities because companionship feels precious. They may compromise personal values because loneliness has been heavy. The psychology of scarcity begins to shape emotional choices. And then there is the complexity of blended families. Falling in love after 60 is rarely a private event. Adult children may feel threatened, suspicious, or protective. They may worry about inheritance, about manipulation, about losing their parent emotionally. The person in love may feel torn between loyalty to their children and loyalty to their own heart. This internal conflict can create guilt that poisons the sweetness of new affection. Instead of pure joy, there is negotiation. Instead of freedom, there is explanation. Love becomes something that must be justified. Financial vulnerability is another silent danger. At 60, most people are thinking about stability, retirement, healthcare, security. Entering a new romantic relationship can complicate finances in ways that are emotionally charged. There may be unequal wealth, unequal dependence, or hidden expectations. Some individuals become targets of emotional or financial exploitation precisely because they are seeking connection. The desire to feel valued can make a person overlook subtle manipulation. And because society assumes older adults are wise, they may feel ashamed to admit they were deceived. Health adds another dimension: physical limitations, chronic conditions, medication side effects. These realities shape intimacy in ways that require maturity and patience. When one partner is significantly healthier than the other, imbalance can develop. Caregiving may enter the relationship earlier than expected. The romance may transform quickly into responsibility. Love after 60 sometimes carries the hidden possibility of becoming a nurse, a caretaker, a decision maker in medical crises. And while caregiving can be beautiful, it can also be emotionally exhausting. There is also the psychological challenge of identity disruption. After decades of being known as a spouse, a widow, a widower, a single parent, an independent individual, suddenly being in love again shifts self-perception. Friends may react differently, social circles may change, the person themselves may feel a strange mixture of excitement and embarrassment. They might question their own behavior. Am I acting foolish? Am I too old for this? That internalized ageism becomes an invisible critic, whispering doubts that younger lovers rarely hear. Let us talk about grief, because grief does not disappear when new love appears. For someone who lost a long-term partner, falling in love again can awaken guilt that feels almost unbearable. It can feel like betrayal of a memory. The heart can love two people in different timelines, but the mind may struggle to accept that. This internal conflict can sabotage a new relationship before it even stabilizes. The person may unconsciously hold back, protecting the past while trying to step into the future. There is also the danger of unrealistic idealization. After years of loneliness, companionship can feel intoxicating. Ordinary kindness may feel extraordinary. Simple attention may feel like destiny. The psychological phenomenon of projection becomes powerful. People may project their unmet needs onto the new partner, expecting healing, rescue, validation. When reality inevitably reveals imperfections, disappointment can feel sharper because expectations were so emotionally loaded. Another aspect no one discusses is the fear of dependency. After 60, independence often becomes a badge of survival. Many have learned to manage alone. They have routines, hobbies, spiritual practices, friendships. Love threatens to disturb that equilibrium. It introduces emotional dependency again. The fear of losing oneself inside another person can create resistance. Some may sabotage closeness to protect autonomy. Others may swing to the opposite extreme and become overly attached, afraid of losing the connection. And then there is intimacy, emotional and physical. Society rarely portrays older adults as passionate beings, yet desire does not vanish with age. When love reignites sensuality, it can feel both empowering and confusing. There may be insecurities about appearance, about aging bodies, about performance. Shame can interfere with openness. Honest conversations about needs and limitations require courage. Without communication, misunderstandings can grow quietly. Social judgment adds another layer of danger. People may gossip, they may question motives, they may assume manipulation or desperation. External negativity can seep into the relationship, creating defensiveness. The couple may isolate themselves to avoid criticism, which ironically increases dependency and reduces external support systems. Psychologically, attachment styles do not disappear at 60. Anxious attachment, avoidant tendencies, fear of abandonment. These patterns often become more entrenched over time. Without self-awareness, old wounds replay themselves in new dynamics. The difference is that there may be less emotional energy to recover from repeated cycles of conflict. Yet perhaps the most profound danger is existential. Falling in love after 60 reawakens hope. It reopens dreams. It makes the future feel alive again. And hope is risky, because hope means there is something to lose. For someone who had finally made peace with solitude, love can reintroduce fear of loss. The awareness of mortality becomes sharper. The thought of losing a partner again through illness, distance, or death can create anxiety that shadows joy. But let us be clear, danger does not mean impossibility. It means intensity. Love after 60 demands emotional intelligence at a level many never developed earlier in life. It requires honest conversations about finances, health, boundaries, expectations. It requires integration of past and present. It requires courage to face societal judgment. It requires self-respect strong enough to walk away if manipulation appears. It requires the humility to admit vulnerability. The part no one tells you is that love after 60 is not about completing oneself. It is about choosing companionship while fully aware of impermanence. It is about understanding that time is precious and therefore decisions must be conscious. It is about balancing independence with intimacy. It is about loving without losing oneself. It is about entering connection not from desperation but from wholeness. When approached unconsciously, falling in love after 60 can lead to financial exploitation, emotional devastation, family conflict, and profound loneliness if it collapses. When approached consciously, it can become one of the most meaningful chapters of life, a chapter defined not by fantasy but by depth. The heart at 60 is not naive. It is seasoned. It knows pain. It knows survival. When it chooses to love again, it does so with the weight of history. That is why the stakes are higher. That is why the vulnerability is deeper. That is why the joy, if nurtured wisely, can also be richer than anything experienced before. Because loving at 20 is about discovering the world together. Loving at 40 is about building a world together. But loving at 60 is about sharing the truth of the worlds already lived, without masks, without pretense, without the illusion of endless time. It is raw, it is honest, it is fragile. And that fragility is both the danger and the beauty. So the question is not whether falling in love after 60 is foolish. The question is whether one is prepared to face its psychological complexity, whether one can love without denial, whether one can protect financial and emotional boundaries, whether one can integrate family dynamics without surrendering autonomy, whether one can accept that love at this stage is less about fantasy and more about conscious choice. The danger no one tells you about is not that love will hurt. Love always carries that risk. The real danger is entering it blindly, assuming that age automatically grants wisdom. Age grants experience. Wisdom requires reflection. And without reflection, even a 60-year-old heart can repeat 20-year-old mistakes. But when reflection meets courage, when boundaries meet tenderness, when independence meets companionship, love after 60 does not become a sunset. It becomes a powerful sunrise in a sky that has already seen many storms. And that is not something to dismiss lightly. And there is another layer that is rarely acknowledged. A psychological shift that happens when two people over 60 begin to merge their daily realities, because habits at this stage are not flexible decorations. They are survival systems built over decades, morning routines carefully structured around medication schedules, dietary restrictions shaped by health conditions, sleep patterns adjusted to aging bodies, spiritual practices that have become anchors of stability. And when love asks for space inside this structure, it does not simply add sweetness, it demands adjustment. And adjustment after 60 can feel intrusive rather than romantic, because change requires energy, and energy is no longer taken for granted. Many individuals over 60 have spent years mastering solitude, and solitude at that age is not always loneliness. It is often a hard-earned peace, a rhythm of silence, television at a certain volume, tea at a precise temperature, prayer at a consistent hour. And when another presence enters that space, even lovingly, it disrupts equilibrium, and the danger lies in underestimating how deeply attached people become to their independence. Because while companionship is desired, autonomy is fiercely protected, and the internal conflict between I want you and I need my space can create subtle tension that neither partner fully articulates. There is also the cognitive component that experts rarely discuss openly, because aging brains process stress differently. Emotional upheaval can impact blood pressure, sleep quality, immune response, and overall health more significantly than it might at a younger age. So when a relationship experiences conflict, jealousy, insecurity, or uncertainty, the physiological cost may be higher, anxiety may linger longer, rumination may disturb rest, and the body may carry emotional stress in more visible ways, turning relationship instability into a health risk rather than just an emotional inconvenience. Another hidden risk is the comparison with past love, because at 60, the memory of a long-term partner, whether deceased or divorced, is not a faint shadow. It is a fully developed emotional history, and the new relationship often finds itself being measured silently against decades of shared experiences that cannot be recreated, anniversaries that once meant something, inside jokes that only existed in a previous life chapter. And this comparison may not be spoken aloud, but it influences expectations, satisfaction, and emotional connection, sometimes placing an invisible burden on the new partner to compete with memory rather than reality. Trust at this stage is also more complex, because trust is no longer blind optimism. It is shaped by betrayals survived, promises broken, disappointments endured. And when someone over 60 falls in love, they may appear calm and composed, but internally they are calculating risk with much more awareness than a younger person. They may hesitate to fully merge finances, to move homes, to change legal documents, to introduce the partner to extended family, and this caution can be misinterpreted as emotional distance, when in reality it is self-protection refined by experience. Sexual intimacy carries psychological layers as well, because beyond physical changes, there is vulnerability in exposing an aging body to a new gaze. There may be scars from surgeries, weight changes, insecurities about attractiveness, and while society often romanticizes youthful passion, it rarely validates mature desire. So individuals may struggle silently with shame, wondering if wanting intimacy at this age is inappropriate, and that internalized judgment can create emotional withdrawal even when affection is strong. The dynamic of power can also shift in unexpected ways, especially if one partner is significantly older or financially stronger, because dependence at 60 can feel frightening, whether emotional or economic. And when one person begins to rely heavily on the other for companionship, transportation, medical decisions, or financial stability, the balance can tilt subtly, creating unspoken pressure that transforms love into obligation, and obligation, if unaddressed, erodes romance quietly. Another overlooked danger is relocation, because falling in love may require moving cities, changing communities, leaving behind familiar doctors, neighbors, places of worship, and social networks that provided emotional support for years. And while younger individuals often relocate with excitement, for someone over 60, relocation can feel like uprooting an entire ecosystem of safety. And if the relationship later struggles, the individual may find themselves isolated without the previous support system to fall back on. Jealousy does not disappear with age either, and in some cases it intensifies because social circles are smaller, opportunities feel limited, and the fear of losing a partner to illness, death, or another person can feel magnified. So behaviors like checking messages, questioning friendships, or becoming overly possessive may emerge not from immaturity, but from a deep-seated fear of abandonment, amplified by awareness of time. Then there is the spiritual dimension, because at 60, many individuals have developed firm beliefs about destiny, faith, morality, and life purpose. And if partners differ significantly in spiritual outlook, conflict may arise in subtle but persistent ways, affecting decisions about marriage, cohabitation, financial planning, and end-of-life choices. And these are not small disagreements. They are fundamental worldview differences that require mature dialogue. Legal complications can surface as well, especially concerning inheritance, wills, property ownership, and medical authority. And without transparent discussion and proper documentation, love can unintentionally create disputes among adult children or relatives, leading to courtroom battles that stain what once felt like a beautiful late-life romance. And this is a reality many avoid discussing because it feels unromantic. Yet ignoring it is far more dangerous. There is also the psychological phenomenon of regression, where falling in love reactivates youthful behaviors, sometimes positive, sometimes impulsive, because the brain associates romance with earlier life stages. And while feeling young again can be exhilarating, it can also lead to decisions that ignore practical realities, such as large financial commitments, sudden business ventures, or unrealistic future plans that strain stability. Communication patterns at this age are deeply ingrained, shaped by decades of interaction, and changing those patterns requires conscious effort. So if one partner is accustomed to silence during conflict while the other expects open discussion, misunderstandings may escalate quickly, and without willingness to learn new emotional skills, resentment can accumulate quietly. Moreover, the fear of being alone again can create tolerance for behavior that would otherwise be unacceptable, because the thought of returning to solitude after experiencing connection can feel unbearable. So boundaries may weaken, red flags may be rationalized, and self-respect may quietly erode in the name of preserving companionship. Even social activities change meaning, because introducing a new partner into long-established friend groups may trigger subtle social shifts. Some friends may withdraw, others may judge, and the couple may find themselves redefining their social identity in ways that feel destabilizing, especially if they previously navigated life independently. The psychological impact of caregiving deserves deeper reflection, because statistically, the likelihood of health decline increases with age, and entering a relationship at 60 means accepting the possibility that within a few years, one partner may become significantly ill. And caregiving is not merely physical assistance, it is emotional labor, financial strain, and sometimes anticipatory grief, which can alter the romantic dynamic profoundly. There is also the quiet confrontation with mortality that late life love brings into sharper focus. Because loving someone deeply after 60 means recognizing that the time together may be limited. And while this awareness can intensify appreciation, it can also create underlying anxiety, a fear of attachment, because attachment increases the pain of eventual separation.